Welcome to the Wonder Women's Collective podcast. I'm your host, Gracie Hins, and today I am talking with Tamara Jacobi. She is the author of the Wildpreneurs book, and she is also the owner of the Tailwind Lodge in San Pancho, Mexico. It was such an honor to sit and chat with her. I read her book 3 years ago after my junior year of college and was just so inspired and kind of thought like, oh my gosh, I really need to come back to this in a couple years when I have a little bit more of an idea of what I want to do in the career space. And I recently came back to it and was like, wow, I should just reach out and see if she'd want to chat. And so it was so cool getting to just hear from her. And it is such a blessing that she put this book out into the world. I feel like you often hear that you should create and write the thing that your younger self needed. And I really feel like she did that with this book. So I hope that you enjoy this conversation. I really did. And without further ado, here she is. Wonderful. Well, I kind of just like to start off. I feel like my favorite question has been, who are you? Do you want to just like give a little description of like who you are and what you spend your time doing? Because I feel like it kind of just opens it up to like business stuff, fun stuff, everything that you have going on.
Well, I would say primarily who I am right now is mom. I have two little ones. My daughter turns 3 this weekend, and my son is 5. And they're just these amazing little miracles who are so curious about life. And we also live in the jungle. And so that is very much the focus of our life right now is adventurous living with little kids. I'm the owner, founder of the Tailwind Jungle Lodge, this is actually our 20-year anniversary.
Oh my
We
gosh.
we got the property in 2005, and it was just a raw canvas of jungle. And I wrote up the business plan for our lodge while I was still in college and headed down here with my family to build the lodge. And so we host many interesting guests here from all over the world, from families and couples to bigger retreats and such. So lodge life, family life, and then I'm also a writer, which with the kids, I don't have as much time as I like now to write, but my book did come out. Wildpreneurs came out when my son was just a few months old. And that tells the story of building the lodge and then includes interviews from other free spirits who have blazed their own trails through, I would say, unconventional business. So life on the beaten track, off the beaten track, excuse me.
Yeah, it was so fun. I feel like I read your book right after I think my junior year of college, and like I've kind of always had it in my mind of like, okay, I really want to start my own business. And like I read your book and was just like it's just the perfect outline for people that are trying to live and like start a business off the beaten path. And I just remember like reading it and being like, okay, I need to circle back to this in like a couple years when I have like a little bit more of an idea. And then I recently just did that and I was like, I really need to reread that book. And I was like, I should reach out and chat with you. But it's just like it's so cool. And I feel like it's also one of those things that you kind of hear people talk about, write and like do the thing that like your younger self needed. And I feel like that, like, this book is truly something that, like, as a 23-year-old, that's like, oh my gosh, okay, like, my life is hopefully gonna look a little bit unconventional. Like, it's just like such a gift that you like brought it into the world. Yeah.
Well, you were exactly the person I was writing to. I was definitely writing it to myself and what I wish I had known when I was first starting out with building my business. Because it
Yeah.
was a bit of a lonely journey, honestly. At 21, moving to Mexico, moving into the wilderness,
Yeah.
and trying to come up with something on my own, I felt like there were many times when I was really close to giving up because you think,
Mm.
oh, it'll be life in paradise. It's all butterflies and rainbows and surfing and all that good stuff. And then the reality is it's actually kind of hard, right?
Mhm.
And so I thought my hope was that the book would be a support for those people who are like yourself, looking to
Yeah.
do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy to hear that it resonated.
When you came up with the business plan in school, I think that's also like one thing that I'm just like so struck by of like you had such a like clear path and vision. I feel like with so many people, like it's like, no, like when I was 26, I finally had this idea and this breakthrough. But like for you, it was like, okay, I have this idea, and like it's just so impressive to read about how you just like took it and like fully just went for it.
Well, this is a really interesting topic in my family right now is,
Hmm.
what's nature versus nurture? Do we have these ideas from an early age and just like are so clear about our path and our purpose? And I think for me, it was really clear.
Hmm.
And I think some of that was very much my upbringing. My family raised me to be ridiculously off the beaten track. Their idea, as you read in the book, their idea of a family vacation was like, let's go climb the volcanoes, and outside of Mexico City, or let's go backpacking for months, or bike
Right.
packing for months at a time. So it was a pretty extreme approach. And I was very much taught that once you commit to something, like, you're in it, there's no giving up. Um, and that was in my head. I was like, okay, I'm going to build this lodge and I'm not going to give up. And so I've had this very blind, focused path. And that said, I'm not sure that that's the way it works for everyone. I think with my
Hmm.
kids, I'm seeing and I'm nurturing in them to try to explore all these different options. You don't have to know right away, and it's okay to throw arrows at the bullseye, until you hit the right one. And I think that starts at a very early age. With We're trying all these different things with my son. It's He's been really slow to want to surf, but then there's a kids circus program here in San Pancho, a little
Hmm.
community near us. And
Hmm.
he's just loving, the tumbling and the trapeze and the trampoline. And we're like, okay,
Hmm.
guess we'll roll with this for a while. So yeah, purposeful living. And that is something I've tried to keep really close to my heart, though, is to figure out, what is your path forward and your purpose and what makes you feel inspired, and to use that as your inner compass.
Hmm. And then, so you guys are in San Pancho for what is it, like October through May, and then
Yeah.
Colorado,
Yeah.
and then also New York. Is that right?
Yeah, you got it. Well
Okay.
done. So it's a trifecta of really beautiful places that we get to live in. So we're seasonal. The
Hmm.
summers are a little too intense. I've actually kind of embarrassed to say I've never been a whole year here before. I've always left in the summer, which my local friends tell me, you can't call yourself a local till you've been here for the whole year.
Hmm.
Anyway, the jungle is just a little too wild for us at that point. And
Is it just the
uh,
rainy season? Because I know I had a friend who, like, San Pancho is just beautiful also. I had a friend who her brother was living there, and she was like, "Hey, like, do you want to just like go fly to this tiny little spot in Mexico?" And I was like, "Sure." And it's just like it's such a sick spot, but he was on the same train of like, okay, I'm here for like October through May and then like can't be here in the summer.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that are like
Yeah.
that. And it's just the heat, kind of the bugs. We're out of town about 10 minutes drive, so the road becomes kind of impassable.
Got it.
It
Hmm.
becomes a little bit more of an adventure than maybe we're even up for.
Hmm.
um, and so yeah, and I met my husband in Colorado in Telluride, and he had a whole mountain life at the time, which of course I thought, oh great, I'll get some more mountains and snow in my life, which after 20 years of tropical living,
Hmm.
I'm from Vermont, Quebec, so I spent my youth in the snow. And I thought when I met him that I'd return to some of the snow. And turns out he was really excited more about being in the waves. So we're definitely a tropical family. We are headed up to Telluride to ski next week, which I'm really excited about. But typically, we're in Colorado for the month of June. My husband is a sustainability supervisor for the Telluride Bluegrass Festival.
Oh,
So we get
fun.
to be, in the front row watching these incredible musicians play. And
Hmm.
then we head to the Adirondacks. Lake George, New York is where my
Okay.
husband grew up. So yeah, then we're New York for the rest of the summer. So yeah, we have many homes. Sounds like you
Hmm.
too.
Yeah, yeah, and it's fun. I feel like there's some people get it and some people don't, where I feel like you can find home in a lot of different, I don't know, I feel like it ends up being mostly the people, right? Where it's like
That's
you
right.
have like your people here and everybody just has a little bit of a sense of home, but it is definitely a different way of living and seeing things too, because I feel like I also have like stuff spread out like across various places and I'm like, oh, I have that there and oh, I guess I won't see that for the next couple months, but that's okay.
I
So,
will say, as I've gotten further and further down the path of, I wouldn't call it completely nomadic because we are home here for 6 months, but every time we pack up, I pack less stuff.
yes.
Minimalism has definitely become a very important aspect of our life, which is a good
Yeah.
thing. I
Yeah.
think overall, I'm grateful for that.
Hmm. Okay, another thing that I'm like so curious about is you emphasize so much about like the holistic piece of business and like taking care of yourself and being able to like prioritize like, okay, what is it that I need? What is it that like we can build our business on? And then you went and did the INN training. And then we're a health coach for a little bit. And like, I don't know, I just feel like the collaboration of being like this wildpreneur and then also like figuring out like, okay, I need to be able to take my health so seriously is just something that I feel like a lot of us get really lost in. And so I don't know, just like hearing like some of your thoughts on that and like some of, I don't know, even like the crisis at the beginning that you went through. And then like now you've had it for 20 years, which is just like crazy and like thoughts now.
Well, this is such a timely conversation. I needed to be reminded of the importance of, taking care of yourself, which as a mom is also quite challenging with two little ones who need
Yeah.
me all the time.
Hmm.
So, I think the key point is that it's a daily practice. And it seems like you're very in tune to that as well, is, if you're on your own path, designing your life, you also need to carve out the time to take care of yourself. And if you don't, there's a really good chance you're going to burn out because it is an interesting, the lines between work and play start to blur a little bit. And
Yeah.
I have definitely in the past stepped into the zone of my life is great, but I'm working all the time,
Hmm.
jumping from health coach to writing a book to managing a lodge. And I think you start to drift a little bit
Hmm.
off your path of, okay, I'm supposed to be living my life fully and enjoying myself. But all of a sudden, I have all these purpose driven projects, but I'm busy, which is,
Hmm.
I don't like that term so much. It's like
Hmm.
wonderful is something I've used, is life is so full that you're not actually having a chance to enjoy the journey, which my reminder is try to enjoy the journey. Try to enjoy the journey. It's not just the destination. It's not what you're creating. It's also
Hmm.
every step of the process, which sometimes with little kids, I will say a lot of it feels like survival. I feel like I'm just trying to keep my head above the water without drowning because they're just, wow, it's unlike any journey I've ever been on. Motherhood is wild and, much gratitude, no regrets, but whew, the days are full. Um, and so, yeah, I think it's a daily practice and just being intentional about carving out that time and whatever it may be. And I think that's something else for me is that it's changed. What it means to take care of myself today is different than what it was 10 years ago when I've been and still am a very passionate athlete, which I
Hmm.
have a feeling a lot of the people you talk to on your podcast fall into that category.
Hmm.
It's really so fulfilling to be out there pursuing, being active, doing what you love. And also it's also like it's fitness. It's taking care of yourself at the same time.
Hmm.
And so my version of like fitness has changed. I used to go out and run 10 miles because I had all the time to do that. And now with kids, I'm up at 4:30 so I can try to get, in my little workout before they get up at 6.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
different. But it's all good. But I know for me anyway, that's the key ingredient is if I can get some exercise, anything is possible.
What are the forms of, is it surfing, running, skiing?
All those things look different now, right? So with
Hmm.
my son, he's finally getting out into the waves, and so I have found, though I love surfing, I'm just as fulfilled by being there with him on the boogie board, riding in the baby waves. And same thing with skiing. He's an early skier. My daughter will be skiing for the first time, so we'll be on the magic carpet.
Yeah.
So it looks different than it used to. And I also, and you hear this from many moms, is it doesn't last forever. This is just
Mhm.
one little phase, and all of a sudden they'll be surfing circles around me, skiing circles around me. Um, so yes, I all those things are still my passions. They just happen to look a little different right now.
That's so fun though. Like getting to see kids get excited about things is just like the most fun thing to watch.
Totally. It's contagious.
Yeah.
There's the inner child is real.
And then it's like it's so fun because you just get to play with them. And so it just yeah, and yeah, no, so much fun. Are your parents still super involved in the lodge?
They're here,
Okay.
and I think they love interacting with our guests. That said, I think they've also had their time as far as the daily grind of having to make sure that everything is functioning, the endless maintenance, we
Mhm.
actually have a lot of stairs on our property as well. So the up and down the stairs keeps them fit, but I think they prefer to do it less now.
Mhm.
So yeah, they're still very much here and a spirit of the lodge. But I wouldn't say that they're as involved in the running of the business as they had been in the past, as far as hands-on. My dad's a builder, so he did a
Mhm.
lot of the building here and the railings and, different things around the property. And now not so much anymore. I think we've that ship has sailed. um, we also used to guide as a family, which it sounds like you're part of a family business, so you kind of know what it's like to work alongside your parents and your team.
Mhm.
But my parents and I guided a lot of kayaking trips together. Our guests here loved getting out on the water, and that chapter came to a close a few years ago when I had little kids, and
Mhm.
so there, it's been interesting to feel the seasons of our life here as a family in the jungle, and now this is the season of little kids and grandparents, and so the way we all work together has shifted, and
Mhm.
that's been part of the journey too, is adapting with those changes. It's just change is the only permanent thing, right?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and you have to be able to adapt and flow with it. Okay, so you've had 20 years. That's crazy.
Crazy, crazy, right? I
Yeah.
know.
What do you feel like? I don't know. I feel like this is such a broad question of like what have been some of the highs and lows of it. But I guess like even just toning it down to like the last couple years, like have there been some okay, no, actually no, I'm gonna totally reword that. Some of the like some of the recent points, like I think partially like at the beginning and now, but just like those like reassurance points. And I think you talk about that a little bit in the book. And I like love that so much because I don't feel like people talk about it enough. But I feel like you just get those little signs from the universe that are like, you're doing the right thing. Like it can be just like a text from somebody, or it can be like you have an amazing group of guests and it's just like, okay, like I just feel so reassured in what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that again, that's the intentional living, right? It's not just living
Hmm.
on autopilot and all right, I have this steady job and you're in your comfort zone. And I think I've been very intentional about not living that way. I want to make sure that, and I want to have these conversations with my family too. 20 years later, we're still here doing this, but we do sit down and say, hey, are we doing this next year?
Hmm.
Are we all are we happy? Are we fulfilled by this? Because it's not all rainbows and butterflies, as I said. There are definitely challenges to it with just culturally differences down here. And I
Yeah.
think yeah, just checking in with yourself regularly to make sure you feel like you're on the right track. And usually your gut instinct will tell you.
Yeah, if you
You
sit
feel like
down
you're
and
not,
actually
yeah.
have the time for it.
Yeah, gotta listen. Does become a bit more complex as a family of four,
Mhm.
where my husband is a passionate sailor, and we actually, when he arrived on the scene here, we ended up with a sailboat, even though he came down and said, "Do not let me buy a sailboat." Of course, we ended up with a boat,
Of course,
which
as
has
one does.
um, and I don't know. You might not even, don't mention this to him because he's always been the one that's like, someday we're gonna sail. We're going on a big sailing trip. And
Mhm.
as a very like, I'm a land lover. I love my running still. Whenever I can get out there on the trail, I just love the trees. And
Mhm.
he's all about, I want to head out into the middle of the ocean and sail to Tahiti.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so interestingly, another part of my life, not to jump around, but my book came out and I received a message from Drew Patterson, who became the founder, CEO, or co-founder with a team of Thermal. And
Okay.
I was the first person they hired. They had this idea and they said, "Hey, will you join our team?" And so since then, what we have been through many chapters of Thermal life, but essentially what we do is we offer very like high quality experiential surf trips around the world.
Right.
Um, and so, through this, we recently partnered with the WSL, the World Surf League, and I am now designing these really special VIP trips to the WSL's destinations, including Tahiti. And so I am now talking to our surf guides and our accommodation partners and, designing these Tahiti trips. And I'm starting to feel a little bit of an itch to get out there. And I don't know if like sailing to Tahiti is necessarily the path that I want to take, but after many years of this routine that we've been in with the lodge and New York and Telluride, which are all beautiful places, it's been a long time since I adventured anywhere new, and so my gut is starting to say, well, the kids are small and they're so pure and their eyes are so wide open, and I'm a little terrified of the teen years. Not going to think too hard about that right now, but right now they want to hang out with mom and dad. And so I do anticipate there will be some bigger adventuring in our life in the next few years, which, as I say that, I also recognize, and you've seen San Pancho, it's a really, really special community for kids.
It is. Yeah.
Our kids are in the Waldorf school. It's a little jungle school. They're learning Spanish. They have a gardening class, and they do like all the things that we want them to be doing. And socially, they're exposed to this huge diversity of different kinds of people and walks of life, from local families that live here to expat families that come down because they want to do something different. So it's really rich for them. So we'll see what happens, but my eyes are open to the possibilities beyond Mexico and North America at this point.
No, I remember seeing the thermal. I think I was looking on your blog and I was like, whoa, this seems really interesting and cool. Wait, so what is it that you're designing things for them, and then you're also like,
so my role,
it seems really cool.
I've basically worn all the hats since joining the thermal team. They brought me on as the leader of the guide community. So we have guides right now. Our guide community is probably around 30 guides. But we were a marketplace, so we had 200 guides. And then we decided, well, this is kind of diluting quality, so let's scale it back to more private adventures and be able to customize them. And so we do offer private adventures in 18 locations. So I work really closely with our guides in those locations, surf guides. So these are like the local legend that you want to roll with when you go to one of these places. So instead of, it kind of takes the guesswork out of researching it all yourself and like, oh, which break should I go to? And where's the best spot to stay? Thermal takes care of all that for you. And I don't know about you, but the local experiences are what I want to have when I go to these places. Take me away from the tourist spots. I'm not particularly interested in those. But yeah, so I work really closely with our guides, but then we recently we became the travel partner for the WSL, because we thought, oh, how cool would it be if we could offer our trips to the WSL's events? So for example, we had just had our first trip run in Oahu at their Pipe Pro event, which is, this legendary waves where our group got to see their favorite surfers competing. And then on the days when the heats weren't running, they got to surf themselves with our local guides. So cool. And so I got to design that trip and work with our guides to make sure that everything ran really smoothly, and also work with the WSL team on the ground there to make sure that we were able to give them like the VIP experience that everyone dreams of having at these events. So it's the first time we're trying this, and well, you'll see Tahiti's about to be launched in the next couple of weeks. So let me know what you think.
Yeah, we'll do that. I mean, that sounds like such a fun trip, and like, yeah, it's so much better going off the beaten path and like having like somewhere that you can actually just go and like have an interface that's like, okay, it's actually easy to find that experience that I'm looking for. And I feel like that is like finally starting to become more of a thing now. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I hope so.
And it sounds fun too, just like in shaking up your daily rhythms as well, of like you have the lodge, you have this, like it's feeding all of those different interest points.
Yeah, it is a bit of a juggle. I have to admit, we're also working on another book project that focuses on Lake George and the Adirondacks. It's, with kids, you read enough children's books to realize, oh, there's some really great books and there's also some really terrible books out there for kids. And we just found a hole, and we said, we need a book about Lake George in the Adirondacks and why it's such a special spot. I don't know if you've been there, but we drink the water out of the lake. And I have to admit, I do less running in that lake because I want to swim as long and as far as I can. Yeah. So it's turned me into this distance swimmer. And it also has this really rich, deep history. with the Native Americans and the 7-Year War with the French and the British and just all these forts. And like, as I learned about the lake, because I married into a family that grew up, my husband grew up there, so he just kind of knows, about it. And as I dropped into it, I realized I want to know, and I want my kids to understand too. So we're writing an alphabet journey through the lake. And I've got 7 local illustrators, 7 artists that are drawing illustrations, and it's a really fun project. But all that to say, we have a lot of things that we're juggling, and I have also been very aware of in this fast-paced, world of social media and just, WhatsApp messages and all the things that we're constantly being bombarded with information. And I was reflecting on that Baja trip that I took. You probably remember in the first chapter of my book, I talk about Baja daydreams. And we literally just dropped off with I didn't have a phone when I was 21, 20 years ago. Excuse me. And I think that's something so valuable about letting your brain just empty. And we just paddled all day, and we daydreamed, and we processed, and we thought about our business plan, what we were going to build here in the jungle. We gave ourselves, it was like 2 months of just paddling all day and talking, and no phones and nothing but just being there right then. I think that's so powerful. And yet it's been a long time since I've given myself that opportunity. And I want to get back there with my kids. At some point in the not too distant future, we will be dropping off for a period of time, which will be scary, right? Maybe going to Tahiti. I think our brains need that. I think that's all about self-care too, is that like, I'm not going to look at my phone for the first hour of the morning. I don't know how often you do that, but I've been very bad about it recently. So I need to start setting myself some boundaries there.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I feel like just even like the last 2 days, I've like caught myself, and like, especially traveling too, it's like there's things that I don't know, like I feel like I'm able to kind of like catch myself a bit of like, okay, I can tell when I'm not a little bit more at peace, because I'm like, oh, I'm scrolling on my phone before I go to bed. And like, I've found that if I can like plug my phone in before I go to bed outside, like in the kitchen, and like keep it like,
Yeah.
just like one step removed, like it makes it so that I don't wake up and like look at the news first thing. And I think like yesterday I woke up and like opened up my phone, and I was just like, this just set such a bad tone for the rest of my day. And like
Exactly.
it really is those small things though, that like, okay, like going on a run without music, or like not looking at my phone first thing in the morning. But then yeah, like when you're kind of having that conversation of like, okay, when you're looking at the next couple years, like how important is it to take 2 months off? But then being able to justify like stopping working, or stopping, like, I don't know,
Yeah, figuring out how. It's
yeah, it
hard.
seems like
Yeah.
counterintuitive in some senses. And so, but then it's so important, because like that time to actually just like sit and marinate with your ideas, like you can come out from that and like
Mhm.
just have such a newfound like passion and energy for actually doing that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will say, so here at the lodge, we only have internet up here at our house, which we call the office. And
yeah.
so our retreats are completely disconnected, which is something that we will be preserving as long as we possibly can, because I do
Yeah.
see the change in people's energy.
Hmm.
Well, actually, when they first get here, there's a bit of a like, okay, let's pull off the band-aid. You're about to drop into the jungle. And the first 24 hours, people are a little bit tense, and we actually give them space.
Hmm.
Because they're on edge, they're out of their comfort zone, they're disconnected. But then there's this miraculous shift in their whole being. And when we see them, the next day, they look like a completely different person.
Hmm.
And we just had a Swiss group here. They come for 2 full weeks. They never even come up to check their email. They come to the lodge and they build this incredible mandala on our yoga palapa, and they also have made like dream catchers out of crabs legs and seeds and little nuts and like decorative leaves. And they're just, you can see the creativity and the spark, and they're just so alive. And anyway, I'm just very inspired by them, and it's such a great reminder to me, and I think to everyone, to like, don't forget to disconnect, otherwise you're missing it.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah. That sounds, wait, they were there for 2 weeks. I'm like, that sounds amazing. I need to do that.
I know. Yeah. Well, they come for 2 weeks every year. So if you want to drop into the Swiss group,
Yep. Got it. Noted. That's really fun. Okay, we're getting close to 30 minutes. How are you on time?
I think I have to wrap it up. I
Okay,
actually can hear my guests are
perfect.
waiting for me on the
No
doorstep.
problem. What is there anything that you feel like you want to leave people on today?
No, just keep on listening to that inner compass, and I'll remind myself to do the same. And it works better if we leave our phones in another room, right? um, I do feel, and I don't know if this resonates with you, but I do feel like inspiration is one of the most powerful medicines. And,
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of people that suffer from burnout and just overload and overwhelm. And I think if you can step back and tune into, okay, what is it that inspires me? There's a trickle down effect to, again, your whole body just changes when you can be on that path. And that doesn't necessarily mean like quit your job. It just means make sure you find what fulfills you in the time that you do get outside your job. I don't think radical shifts need to happen necessarily. So yeah, that would be my nugget.
Perfect. Amazing spot to end the recording on. Thanks again for listening. Please let me know if you enjoyed this episode. You can also review it on Spotify, and I hope that everybody has a wonderful rest of their day.